Welcome everybody to today's January 8th first commission hearing of the new year. I also want to wish everybody a happy new year today, and it's nice to see everybody back again. Before we start the hearing today, I do want to first just make mention and recognize the really terrible events that happened in Minneapolis yesterday, and then the protests that are occurring this morning. I want to extend my deepest sympathies to Renee Nicole Good and her wife and family and her kids, and I feel really bad about it. And one thing I wanted to say is that I think that what I think what history will show is that what made this country great is not the dominance of our military, the size of our aircraft carriers, or our ability to do anything anywhere, but it's our commitment to ideas, and it's our commitment to things like freedom of speech and to tell our government that we think it's wrong. And I think that's what I want to say. And with that, just take a moment of silence. Okay, with that, we'll move to our agenda meeting. Today we have 4 agenda items. One item has been pulled and will be dealt with at another time. But first, I will take the attendance. Commissioner Partridge.
Here.
Commissioner Hom.
Here.
Commissioner Tuma.
Here.
I'm also present. Our first issue will be introduced by Ms. Brown-Huss. The floor is yours.
Good morning, Chair Sullivan and Commissioners. Item number 1 is docket 25-355, involving all local exchange carriers in the matter of telephone assistance plan review. The question before the Commission is number 1, should the Commission accept the telephone assistance plan fund review submitted on October 25th, 2025 for the 6-month period ending June 30th, 2025? Should the Commission modify the TAP surcharge? And should the Commission modify the TAP credit? Since the briefing document was published, one document was filed in this proceeding. That was Commissioner Tuma's new decision option number 7. That did include a typographical error. It referenced Minnesota Statute 237.5051. That should be Minnesota Statute 237.7051. That has been corrected. There are updated copies on the back table if you need that. And the parties are available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you. We do not have, if parties could come forward, or if folks are online.
I think Brent's online, yeah.
All right. Mr. Christensen, I think what we'll do is quickly have people introduce themselves. And I'll just
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members. For the record, my name is Brent Christensen. I'm the president and CEO of the Minnesota Telecom Alliance. Well, we are a trade association that represents 40 rural telephone companies. I've submitted a letter. I think the staff recommendation of taking the TAP fee down to 0 makes a lot of sense. A de minimis fee, as most of you know, our members are mainly small rural telephone companies, and it's going to cost more to collect the de minimis fee than it would be to do it, and I don't think that would make a lot of sense. So I would recommend that since given the size of the fund, that we take it down to 0 and then reevaluate every 6 months like you do every time, and then make a decision then. Okay. Happy to stand for questions if it's fair.
Thank you, Mr. Christensen. I appreciate that. I was just calling for introductions quickly, but
sorry.
That's no problem. I just wanted to get those out of the way, but thank you. And if the folks here at the table, if you could just introduce yourself, if you want to, since Mr. Christensen also spoke to it, feel free to take 30 seconds if you want.
Commissioners, Lisa Gonzalez here for the department, an analyst and a coordinator. I'll wait.
Diane Dietz, the Commerce Department.
Thank you. All right. I don't see anybody else, so Commissioner Tuma.
Yeah, thanks. I'll dive right in to the first thing, that the de minimis amount of surcharge. I know that the department, I think for very good reasons, want to make sure people don't lose their muscle memory on how to continue to do this. I think that was the goal here. I'm kind of thinking that if we do go down the track of just examining and looking at and talking about maybe a subsidy increase, I don't think it'll be lost on a lot of people. I was quite interested in our reporting on, who's doing what, and I was surprised that some people aren't even using the program. I mean, there's zero. So, I think there's a value in this kind of dying telephone air to keep that muscle memory going. But I think if we have a conversation over the next year about what to do in the subsidies, I think maybe that might solve the muscle memory issue. But I'll hear from you kind of what your theory is on it. I kind of agree with Mr. Christensen. I don't think they'll forget in a year, and we're going to have to reassess it in a year what to do. But please let us know why you think the de minimis fee collection is a good idea.
Commissioner Tuma, thank you for the question. We want to just ensure that that these subsidies don't just die on the vine, as you stated. And since we know that telephone companies often charge for late fees or installation charges, that these charges that don't happen every month are not something that is unusual. So that was our thinking. And it could be something that would be assessed once a year or perhaps every other month. But we also are not all that well versed on what the cost would be to make those changes to their billing. However, we feel like they probably have the adequate technology. But again, there are a lot of very small providers. And again, as you said, we just want to make sure that this particular subsidy doesn't just disappear, because we think that it could be very useful in the future.
So, Mr. Christensen, I was reading your, you have to blame Mr. Fournier, because we were talking about the past discussions regarding why we have not increased it. And I read your filings in the past on the reasoning for that. And it's just this unusual interaction, as I understand it, between the federal low cost is why a lot of these people are doing it. And if we increase the subsidy, it actually bumps them below the federal low cost, where they would have to increase the rates for everybody else to stay within that time frame. And so that intrigued me to think about how can we do this different. We do honestly have a lot of hurdles if we were go down a fee increase like I'm thinking about, because of the way the statute is drafted, where it uses language about uniform kind of fees. I think it was establish a uniform statewide level of TAP assistance. And so I'm trying to work my brain around how we could accomplish something that would not let a low-cost provider, someone who is keeping their costs low and right at that, $30 mark for the federal program, because if I'm a customer there, I'm a low-income customer, that's good, I would like that, but maybe some have headroom, and I don't know how many do. And so my rationale for decision option 7A was, let's start asking the question, how many people do have headroom, how many people don't have headroom, what does it look like, and have a conversation. So in talking to our administrator of TAP, we know that there will be a filing that he sends out in early April saying, hey, you got your TAP filing coming up. And we thought that would be a good time to remind them to do this compliance filing. Let us know if you do have some headroom, how would it work? Would you have some space to do that? And then have a conversation between then and essentially 1 year from now, and open up the discussion for notice and comment to say, is there some room to increase the subsidy, deal with the affordability questions that are out there? And so we're just trying to ask the question. There's a lot of hurdles to go through, but I'm just curious, like my theory is that we'll have a conversation, people will not lose the muscle memory, they'll be talking about the subsidy over the next year. And so my theory was to keep it at, or go to zero for the fee, and then just have a serious discussion about, is there headroom, can we increase for folks that are maybe at some of the higher cost providers. So give me your thoughts on my crazy idea and whether that's something you would be willing to work with your members on.
Mr. Christensen.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Tuma, I don't think I can call it a crazy idea because I agree with it, and I would say that I'm crazy. So I think it's a good idea. To the muscle memory issue, we still are going to have TAM. We're still going to have 911. So there's not going to be any loss of how to collect the fees. My comments earlier were relating to the administrative cost to, once you've collected the fees, to remit them and do that stuff for a de minimis amount. That doesn't make sense to me. I would support your thought wholeheartedly. I think it's always good to take a look at the program and how can we do it better. Like you referenced previous testimonies that I've given, landlines are going down, and so this service is going down. And how do we modernize this? And we keep bringing this up with all of the telecom related rules and statute. And how do we modernize it? How do we bring it into the 21st century in a competitive market? And so I think that's a really good idea.
And then any guess? I read your comments, and your members better than any of us do. Any guess at how many would have headroom to possibly do a fee increase without violating the federal program?
Mr. Christensen.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Tuma, not off the top of my head, and it's not so much of having the headroom in it, but it's threading the needle on the requirements and the rate floor that the FCC puts in, and where that is, and trying to keep the customers that we have on telephone service. So I think it's worth a study, and it's worth taking a look at.
Those are all the questions I have. My thinking, Mr. Chair, is to do 1, 3, and 6, and then also the revised TUMA, corrected TUMA 7. And I just wanted to give the department a chance to respond to anything they heard if they have any concerns with that course of action.
Ms. Gonzalez.
Thank you for the opportunity to respond. The only thing I'm wondering about are the providers who are not necessarily part of Mr. Christensen's organization. I don't know if they should be consulted first or given the opportunity to comment, but I just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah, and that was my thinking of not rushing into. At first, I was like, let's go ahead and let's do an increase and create a program or that's why I was thinking it's better to ask the question, because they'll get notice of a compliance filing from our TAP administrator, and the order will be out there for them, and so it'll be a matter of connecting with them, because a lot of them don't even care about our existence unless they need their extension of their ETC or whatever. And so, yes, communicating with them, getting them involved, and having them have an opportunity to talk to us, I think is important. So that's kind of one of the reasons why I thought instead of just rushing in and doing it, let's take the time and get the information first. So I agree with you. So thanks.
Still want your decision option?
Yeah, I'm good with it if you're ready. But
Commissioner Hom.
I wanted to give others a chance.
Thank you, Chair Sullivan. Yeah, I had a similar discussion with our staff and whether we can increase this credit today, not waiting. And then I saw the challenge too, so that's why I can agree with your number 7. But while doing it, I also asked staff another question, that is, in general, this service of the cop line is shrinking. And if it's possible, we want to see the shrinkage rate of decrease in the TAP qualified customer versus a general service customer. If one group is decreasing faster than the other, we may have to have a different answer to it. So in that study, I hope that you can do that. Show us last 5 years change of number of customers in overall service versus this TAP qualified or the subsidized customers. So we can fully utilize this funding as soon as possible.
All right. Ms. Dietz, are you good? Did you?
Yes, Commissioner. We can take a look at that. If you think it's relevant, it might well be relevant to your decision-making process.
I'll just add on to Commissioner Ham's question is very similar to something I had, so I'm in the same ballpark as where he's at. All right, I'm going to move Commissioner Tuma's suggested motion. Just kidding. You can move it.
I'll move the suggested number 1, number 3, number 6, and the revised or corrected Tuma 7.
All right, on that motion, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 4-0. Thank you. Thank you to the parties. All right. Our next item today, second agenda item, will be introduced by Mr. Eric Willett. It's regarding Greater Minnesota Gas and a depreciation filing. Mr. Willett, the floor is yours.
Good morning. Chair Sullivan, Commissioners. Item number 2 is docket G022/D 25-306 in the matter of Greater Minnesota Gas petition for approval of depreciation certificate. The issue before the Commission: should the Commission approve or modify Greater Minnesota Gas's 2025 depreciation certificate? And staff's available for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Willett. Would parties turn their cameras on or come forward and introduce themselves before we turn to Commissioner questions? All right, I see Ms. Anderson, Mr. Adonisio. I'll start on my left. Mr. Adonisio.
Good morning. Craig Adonisio for the Department of Commerce, and I'm joined online by my colleague Kwong No.
Thank you. Ms. Anderson.
Christine Anderson on behalf of Greater Minnesota Gas.
Thank you. All right. Turn first to Commissioner questions. Commissioner Ham.
Thank you, Chair Sullivan. So to the company, that there is some adjustment in your plan balance activity in Table 2 of the briefing paper, showing that distribution, the main, $174,000 plus adjustment. So in your application, you stated that is you missed the kayak amount, and then now you are incorporating that into this depreciation.
Chair Sullivan, Commissioner Ham, yes, I don't do the financials on it, but that's my understanding of what happened.
Okay, so my question is it accounting mistake or is it regulatory report mistake?
Ms. Anderson.
I believe it was an accounting error, but I'm not positive on that. If you'd like to take a brief recess, I can check with our accounting team.
Okay, so you are privately owned company, right?
Correct.
So in this case, how your company can be accountable for this kind of accounting error? Because a publicly traded company has very tight control in this finance. SEC is running that, but you are privately owned company. How you are making sure that this kind of accounting activity mistake is accountable and enforced to not repeat this kind of a mistake?
Commissioner Hom, first of all, I can't speak to exactly when the mistake was made. I know that our current Chief Financial Officer, who's been with us for not quite 2.5 years, thoroughly reviewed everything and changed some accounting practices to tighten them. And we also have a 3-person accounting team staff now, which we didn't used to have. But like I said, I can't speak to when the error was made, and I'm not 100% certain that it was an accounting error. I can say that annually, Mr. Adonisio and the rest of the department team review our financials as part of our capital structure filing. They review the department and commission review our financial information, such as it's presented in our annual JARs. We also have audited financials for all of the companies in the family of companies every year. So we do everything that we're required to do to keep the checks and balances. I can't speak specifically to how this one error happened, but I've been with the company since 2013, and I'm not aware of any similar errors that we've had to address like that in the past. So I think it was an anomaly.
Yeah, I understand. Even if you are a very small company, still it's a huge chunk of money. $173,000 is not a small amount. Given your size of your labor payroll and everything, that's a huge amount of money. That money was not being properly accounted. I think I had a concern that whether your annual accounting audit is properly done in that case. If that happened, how you are making sure that any person or any system is accountable for it? Do you have any system making sure that person or a system that in account for this mistake is accounted?
I can tell you that our CFO is a licensed management accountant, that she has put in a system of checks and balances beyond what we had in the past. I'm sorry that I don't have the specific information. I'm happy to either give her a call if we take a break and give you a better answer, or to discuss it with the team and submit a letter after the fact. I just apologize that I don't want to speak out of turn. I'm already engaged in some level of speculation as it is, because it's just not something that's directly in my province.
Okay, thank you. I think the follow-up potentially with the department will help, because I think at the end of the day, department has to understand what was going on, and then we shouldn't repeat that same mistake on an ongoing basis.
Certainly, I'd be happy to provide a follow-up. Thank you.
Okay. So follow-up question to that is, you had a recent approved rate case. How this number was reflected in that rate case?
Commissioner Hom, the depreciation study was started during the rate case, but there are things like some of the changes, for example, the separation of the way meters are accounted for those questions arose during the rate case, and so any questions that arose, we incorporated into the depreciation study. Since the rate case was still pending at the time that the depreciation certification was proposed, we obviously didn't know where new rates would be, but it was all based on the same financial information, the same projections. So everything ran in parallel. So I don't believe that the rate case that was still pending at that time, and I guess technically is still an open docket, would have any impact one way or another on the depreciation study.
So do you think we should revisit your rate case and then adjust this amount from your rate base and change your depreciation if it was not reflected in your most recent rate case?
Commissioner Hom, I can't speak directly to what the commission's preference would be on that. There's certainly nothing in the depreciation docket anywhere or in the rate case docket that would give me reason to believe that that's necessary. And it's also not something that the department raised in its review. But, obviously we'll do whatever the commission prefers in that regard.
So can you find that out when you are talking with your finance officer and communicating with the department, making sure that you guys can file some follow-up information to this docket to make sure that whether it was properly reflected in your most recent rate case. If it was not reflected, I hope that department makes some recommendation what to do with their most recent rate case. If it's still in the recon, I don't know whether it's still in the recon process or not.
Chair Sullivan, Commissioner Hom, we'll certainly file whatever follow-ups are required. Mr. Adonisio may be able to speak more directly to your concern. He's typically involved in our company's financial review for the department, and so he's more about the meat and potatoes of the numbers than I am, to be perfectly frank.
I agree with you. That's why I was hoping that you communicate with the departments and we can find some information and we can have some follow-up what potential remedy is. Only thing I was asking you and in overall discussion was, I hope the company has internal control that can making sure that it doesn't happen again.
I'm confident, Commissioner Hom, that I'll be able to provide information that is satisfactory in that regard.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Adonisio, do you want to add anything, or you're looking at me?
Chair Sullivan, no, I don't have anything to add at this point.
Any other additional questions? All right. Commissioner Hom, do you have a motion?
Yeah, I need to talk with the legal a bit, whether we need a order point for that follow-up or we can do it in the voluntary basis.
Why don't we just do a quick 5 minutes and then get it done? We're back. Commissioner Hom, or I can just turn first to Ms. Anderson. Ms. Anderson.
Thank you, Chair Sullivan, Commissioner Hom. During the break, I was able to speak briefly with our CFO to get some clarification. Commissioner Hom, with respect to the question you asked about that kayak, it actually is her checks and balances that picked it up. It's some very old kayak numbers that have been on the books for many, many years. It was either her predecessor or his predecessor that didn't book them. She identified it when she was going through the financials for the rate case and things didn't tie out. So she went back and found them. She's unclear as to why they weren't booked where they should have been all those years ago. But it was her system that caught it and it's been corrected now going forward. Unfortunately, nobody is with the company that was here then. So nobody can speak to why. But her systems have caught it, and it's been so long that we don't really know why it was the way it was, but she's corrected it now so things tie out. And then with your question regarding the open rate case and the rate base calculations, she said to the extent that there is any difference, she expects it to be very nominal. Our test year in the rate case was 2025. We only requested 2 very minor changes in our depreciation certification from what we were doing previously, and for those particular items, there would be very little impacted. So with the depreciation change happening effective January 21, 2025, and 2025 being our test year, and what as a practical matter has unfolded for the company, she expects that any change would be very, very nominal.
Commissioner Hom.
Thank you. Yeah, I understand it can be very nominal, but I think I talked with our counsel, and then I think we are still in the recon proceeding, and the company filed the recon petition. So the company can update your recon petition or file additional information in that docket and this docket to making sure that we are tying up all the numbers. So in the future, people can understand what is going on.
Thank you, Commissioner Hom. I'll make sure that we do that.
Okay. With that, I think I can make a motion.
All right. Commissioner Hom.
Yeah, with that understanding, I can make a motion to move decision option 1 and 2. And before I make a final, I appreciate department's work on this docket. I recognize that you identify the effective date misalignments and you send the IR, and then company had to correct it through the IR process. So I appreciated that the department did a good job following through this dockets.
Thank you, Commissioner Hom. Thank you for that line of work there. Appreciate that. On Commissioner Hom's motion, Commissioner Partridge.
I'm just ready to say yes.
Yes. Okay, we'll go to a vote.
No questions for me.
Commissioner Hom, your motion is decision options 1 and 2.
Yes.
And now we'll go to a vote. Commissioner Partridge.
Yes.
Commissioner Hom.
Yes.
Commissioner Tuma.
Yes.
I also vote yes. The motion passes. Thank you to the parties. I could have done a voice fit there too.
I think that was Otter I was waiting for. That's okay. I'm only guessing.
Sometimes I'm slow too, so I get it. Or dense.
Or both.
Or both.
That's usually me.
All right, Dr. Larson, if you could introduce the third item for the day. And if the parties could turn their cameras on or come forward.
Good morning, Chair Sullivan and Commissioners. Before the Commission is item number 3, docket number E-017/M-25-199, in the matter of Otter Power Company's petition for approval of the annual update of its electric utility infrastructure cost recovery rider, rate schedule 13.11. The question before the Commission is, should the Commission approve Otter Power Company's proposal to decrease rates in the company's electric utility infrastructure cost rider to take effect the first day of the month following approval. Parties and staff are available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Larson. All right. I see the parties have turned their cameras on. If you could just introduce yourself for the record. I'll start with Mr. Johnson from the Department of Commerce.
Good morning, Chair Sullivan, Commissioners. Mark Johnson with the Department of Commerce.
All right. Next up.
And also with me is Justin Taylor, too.
All right. Otter Tail. Ms. Donofrio, your mute is on.
Sorry about that. Good morning, Commissioners. Lauren Donofrio on behalf of Otter Tail Power Company. And with me, I have Paula Foster, Ben Christensen, and Colin Kraymeyer. And we are available to answer any questions you may have.
All right, great. Thank you. And we will now move to Commissioner questions. Commissioner Partridge.
Thank you, Chair Sullivan. I first want to just highlight what Mr. Larson said, which is this is whether we should vote to approve a decrease in rates, which is something that we don't often get the opportunity to do. So thank you, Otter Tail, for bringing us this novel and exciting opportunity to reduce rates in even a small way. I had just a couple questions for you. I think I first want to just highlight a couple things on the advanced metering infrastructure investment. And I wanted to bring out sort of the reason why I think this is a really useful and helpful technology and why I think it's so important that we're including this type of project in the investments that utilities are making in the system. So, Ms. Donofrio, I just wanted to bring up the fact that you are expecting to see just for the state of Minnesota, for our jurisdictional portion of the benefits from AMI, in cost savings in 2026 of over $2.8 million. And I think that's, are you going to correct me?
Commissioner, I was not going to correct you.
Okay.
I was going to, I thought you were done there, and I was I was going to refer you over to Paula Foster but please go right ahead.
Okay. Well, Ms. Foster, maybe you can tell me the answer to this. So my question was, I know that the amount that you will credit back to ratepayers will be capped at the amount you included in base rates to begin with. And I was just curious if that 2.8 for Ms. Foster is higher or lower than the amount that is included in base rates for Minnesota customers.
Good morning. Are you able to hear me here?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry, I've been a little bit sick. Chair Stephen and Commissioner, that is equal to the amount that would be in base rates. Yeah.
Great. So you estimated correctly, and the savings are still on track. So that's great.
Ms. Foster, could you just quickly introduce yourself for the record? I just want to make sure. I know Ms. Donofrio introduced you, but I just want to make sure that it's clear.
Yes. Sorry. Paula Foster for Otter Tail Power Company.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. And then, I won't go into it, but there's a lot of information in here about the cost savings that you expect to have because of the demand response you've included in the EUIC. This is sort of an innovative and a little bit strange of a rider that's been around for a while now, which is allowing for utilities to invest in infrastructure that improves the efficiency of their system. And so these are the kind of special investments that allow us to see cost savings on the system because of the added efficiency. I wanted to ask one more question of you, and I'm not sure who to direct this to, so Ms. Donofrio, if you can just point me in the right direction. I did want to ask a little bit about the customer service center upgrades, and I wanted to get some information about whether those did ultimately happen through another and you'll plan to recover those through another process, and maybe a little bit about why you chose, if that's the case, to either do a different cost recovery process or forego those upgrades.
Certainly, and Commissioner, I can answer those questions. It really had to do with the timing. We made the decision to file a general rate case, and because we were able to include those costs in the general rate case request, there really wasn't all that much at stake to include them here for just a couple of months before they would roll into rates through the general rate case.
Okay, that makes sense. But you did go ahead and make those upgrades and improvements to the customer service center, including those efficiency upgrades that you had initially proposed here?
Yes, we are not 100% done with all of that, but we are on track and on budget for those projects.
Excellent. I do not have any additional questions, but maybe you all do.
Commissioner Hom.
Thank you, Chair Sullivan. I think a similar question I asked in the prior docket. So since you have an open rate case and then this is a potentially your rate base, so I want to make sure that we have assurance that there's no double recovery and those two numbers are consistent to each other and we are not prejudging any rate case outcome based on this decision. So along that line, can company and department assure us that that'll happen?
Ms. Donofrio.
Commissioner Hom, we can absolutely assure you that that will happen. We very, very carefully work through all of the accounting and all of the roll-in items so that there is absolutely zero double recovery between the two mechanisms.
Along the line, also another point is in case there is a dispute with your rate base in the rate case, and we are not prejudging that because we are approving this one, right?
That's correct.
Thank you.
All right. Commissioner Tuma.
I just wanted to hear from Mr. Johnson. I was looking at your analysis, page 37, talked about the jurisdictional allocator. And I was trying to get my brain around the statement where you said Otter Tail provided a response stating the company's revenue requirement of $7.2 million, rounding there, is not impacted by the updated allocators with a minimal increase of $30,000 if the 2021 test year allocated factors were updated to 2024. And that caused me confusion because my understanding was that the allocators were moving in a particular direction to favor more of the costs being shifted to the Dakotas as opposed to Minnesota. And so our staff, I think, has narrowed it down and explained it to me, but I just want to make sure we're tracking with that. Why is that happening?
Mr. Johnson.
Sure. Chair Sullivan, Commissioner Tuma. In the riders, the department, often relies on the most recently approved allocators from the last rate case, and we stick to those until there's new approved allocators. And we're fully aware of this issue, and we'll be evaluating these allocators in the context of the rate case. And just to follow up on your previous question about the riders and double recovery, we also always look at rider roll-ins to make sure they match up and there is no double recovery.
Yeah, I think that the confusion to me was that there was an increase. That's what caused me confusion that if we went to the 2024 factor, actually was an increase in the amount, so that's why we're sticking with the 2021, which makes sense. I agree with that just on but what just caused me confusion, why is that the case? Why is there an increase here when overall we're seeing the allocators seemingly to be shifting towards the Dakotas?
Mr. Johnson.
Yeah, Chair Sullivan, Commissioner Tuma. I don't have an exact answer why that is here, but again, we will be looking at that closely in the rate case.
Ms. Donofrio, do you have any explanation for that, or your staff?
Ms. Donofrio.
Thank you, Commissioners. I would ask Paula Foster to field that question for me.
Ms. Foster. You get the baton.
Yes, Commissioners, I do not have a direct answer for that at this point either, but we can definitely get you that answer if you'd like us to do some research and get the right people involved.
Per circle, we thought it was because you're using a specific allocator for the meters as opposed to an allocator overall, but I could be wrong. I obviously didn't go back to the spreadsheets to try to figure it out, so I'm going to assume you guys are going to be tracking that, Mr. Johnson, as you go through the rate case of why that is, and I'll trust you, but it just seemed odd to me to read that sentence at this stage. I don't think it's all that relevant if you're saying you're saving money, so I'm good with it, but I think the allocators are going to be fully discussed, and that's why it popped up in my mind. We've already discussed it quite a bit at the beginning of the rate case, so. Mr. Chairman?
All right. Thank you.
For a later time, I guess.
For a later time. All right. Commissioner Partridge, do you have a motion?
I do. I move decision option 1, 2, 3, and 4.
All right. All in favor? Or is there any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. The motion passes. Thank you to the parties. Thank you, Dr. Larson, for your work in putting together the docket. And thank you for all the work of the parties. And with that, we're going to take a 10-minute break.
Do you want me to say I'm going to recuse?
Oh, yes. Actually, Commissioner Partridge.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair Sullivan. I just wanted to say that I will be recusing myself from the final item today because I was a party in this docket prior to coming to the commission. So everyone enjoy the rest of your day. I shall not see you again.
See you later.
Until another day.
Is that a promise?
You will haunt us, though, until then. With that, we're going to take 10 minutes, and we'll be right back. All right, we are all ready to go. And now I will have Dr. Dornfeld introduce our final agenda item for the day. And if the parties could turn their cameras on or come forward to the desk for questions. Dr. Dornfeld.
Thank you, Chair Sullivan, Commissioners. The final item before the Commission today is docket number E002/M-23-524 in the matter of the petition of Xcel Energy for approval of a residential time of use rate design. The question before the Commission today is, should the Commission approve items detailed in Xcel Energy's August 14th, 2025 compliance filing on its residential time of use rate design? There were a few late filed items, which I have printed copies of and placed up front. These include CEE's preferred decision items, as well as an ex parte conversation and a response to that conversation. These items were also shared with commissioners ahead of time. There will be no opening statements today, but the commenters are available in person and online for any commissioner questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Dornfeld. I will start with introductions, and if we could just start over at the left, my left.
Good afternoon, morning, afternoon. Olivia Carroll with the Citizens Utility Board of Minnesota.
Good morning, Joey Cherney with the Office of the Attorney General Residential Utilities Division.
Sydney Lieb with the Minnesota Department of Commerce.
Lauren Steinhauser with Xcel Energy.
Morning, Ashley McFarland with Center for Energy and Environment.
Good morning, David Moberg with Mincia.
Welcome, everybody. There are no opening comments, so we will start first with commissioner questions. Are there commissioner questions? Otherwise, I'm just going to jump right in. My first question is for the company. I want to talk about decision option 6. I'm just going down my list, so that's the order here is what struck me first. And on decision option 6, I am inclined to do this, and the reason that I want to do it is because I think it's more of a belt and suspenders approach. And my understanding now is that, and if you could confirm, that right now the company the outreach that the company does or has been doing is for customers who are on the A51 to A56 tariff, and this then kind of belt and suspenders make sure that you're doing that same outreach for folks who are on the A50 and the A60 rate.
Chair Sullivan, that's correct, and we're happy to do this.
Okay, great. Thank you. My next question is on decision option 8, and this is for the Center for Energy and Environment. Ms. McFarland, I got that right? Okay, nice to meet you. Nice to see you. Okay, so I'm curious, your decision, the new decision option 8 that CEE has proposed, is like an amalgam of decision option 8 and then decision option, part of decision option 11, I think it's 11B. I'm wondering why you did not include 11C in including a consent form in your new decision option 8.
Yes, Chair Sullivan. We were trying to simplify the process for customers to get on the new rate, and so we were hoping that if it's just clear that they meet the tariff requirement of having more than 50% of their heat be electric, then they would be enrolled on the rate. And then later we provide decision option, or we made a revision decision option 12. So if they, once on the rate, make a decision that they'd rather not be on the rate, they have clear information on how to unenroll.
But they kind of automatically default to the rate.
If they have more than 50% of their heat is electric.
Okay. Yeah, go for it. Yeah, you might be thinking a similar thought to me.
Well, I don't know if I am. I'm just trying to imagine it from a customer standpoint. A contractor comes in. That's typically the point of contact. Is there requirements that Xcel has for that contractor to disclose, or will there be to disclose that you're going to be moved over to a new rate class if you participate with me in putting in this new heat pump?
Ms. Steinhauser.
Chair Sullivan, Commissioner Tuma. We are really committed to making this as easy as possible for the customers, but there is not, it's that contractor-customer dynamic that we're worried about with the auto enrollment here that we don't think really works. There isn't a requirement that the contractor informs the customer of anything. Our primary concern with the rebate form is that the customer receives the rebate for the heat pump, right? So adding any requirements onto that, like if they don't check the box that they informed them, or that they don't, adding additional requirements to that would require us to then deny the rebate because additional information was or wasn't communicated is a really tough position, I think, to put the contractor, the customer, and the company in.
Hold on a second. You would deny the rebate because they didn't respond to whether or not they want to be on a new rate?
Whether the contract, so the rebate applications are filled out and submitted by the contractor. Mm-hmm. So it would be putting the onus on the contractor to talk to the customer and then check that box.
If you were to require consent.
Correct. Or require enrollment in a rate based on the rebate form, right? We'd have to be relying on the contractor to have communicated that to the customer, which we're going to encourage them to provide information and inform them of the rate and encourage, like, all the information they would need to share with the customer in order to get them on the rate, but not tie additional requirements to the rebate application and not tie enrollment to the rebate application because it's not a customer-facing document.
Well, help me out. That's what I'm trying to understand. I have these contractors. They have to get approval from you, so they walk in with an Xcel document that you allowed them to communicate. Okay, I'm assuming they're a customer that they're going to is going to be looking at this, saying, "Here's the rebate form. I'm going to sign you up for." I think as a contractor, just to cover myself, I'm asking the customer to say, "Yes, you're going to get this rebate. I'm signing you up for it." I'm thinking that's what's happening when my contractor from ABC, heating comes in and says, "Hey, thanks for calling me. Here's what we're going to do for you. Let's sign you up and get you all lined up. And by the way, I am a Xcel, rebate thing." I'm thinking that's kind of the synergy that's happening there. So you don't have any requirements for those contractors to do that. I mean, I would be comfortable with just like you have an obligation to communicate to the customer they're going to be shifted. And if you see that happening, I'm going to deal with ABC, not deny the rebate, but deal with ABC saying you need to do your due diligence and deal with the customer after the fact is, I think, what CE is recommending. And so that's what I'm just trying to find this relationship, not having asked for a Xcel rebate because I think I would violate some sort of ethic codes. I'm waiting until I'm done with my commission hopefully my furnace will survive that long before I go get my.
You get a rebate.
I know I get a rebate. I'm being silly. Okay, because I just haven't gone and got my rebate yet. I'm waiting for my furnace to die.
Specially offered just to commissioners.
I'm just waiting for my furnace to die. But the point is, I haven't done it, so I'm trying to understand what Joe Smith from ABC is saying, and I would assume that you could require Joe and ABC to disclose, yes, you're going to be switched. Is that happening?
Ms. Steinhauser.
Chair Sullivan, Commissioner Tuma. So my understanding is that's not how it works. And in my recent experience, the contractor was like, "You get a rebate. It's great. We're going to fill it out and submit it." And we never saw it. It wasn't for Xcel, but that was my recent experience with a rebate. And that is my understanding from our team of how it works with our contractors, is that there's not a form that they show the customer. It's electronic, like on an iPad. They fill it out after the installation and then submit it to us.
So that customer, you're not seeing these customers get into your program because they see something on Xcel's filings or, bills or whatever they're getting, or communications. I'm getting tons of emails from y'all. It's Joe Smith going in there for ABC, and they're going, "Oh, ABC's offering heat pumps, and it costs X, and the ABC's just building it into their cost." Is that how it's working? I mean, I'm trying to understand this rebate relationship that's going on here. I just made the assumption that I'm contacting Joe because he's an Xcel, approved Xcel contractor, and I'm going to get a rebate. That's why I want to do it. So that's where I'm getting confused.
Chair Sullivan, Commissioner Tuma, I think some of the confusion is rebate for a heat pump versus the rate. So that we have a heat pump program, they get information about heat pumps and rebates and trying to make it more affordable for folks. And it's linking up that heat pump rebate to the availability of the rate. Just because you get a heat pump doesn't mean you qualify for the rate. You have to have, I think it's 50%, my team can yell at me if I get this wrong, but 50% of your heating has to be electric in order to qualify. So there's that extra step too, is the contractor would need to, you've got a heat pump. Do you want to be on this new rate? Is your heating all, or more than 50% electric? So they're two separate things with different requirements. One feeds into the other, and so that's why we want to use it for marketing, to like reach out to these folks and let them know about the rate and make sure they're aware of how to do it. But it's that automatic piece that we're having a hard time with.
Ms. McFarland, when my furnace dies, what am I gonna be doing? I guess I would think I would be wanting to go and find an Xcel contractor, someone who's going to give me that rebate.
Ms. McFarland.
Commissioner, so in an ideal scenario, your contractor comes, installs the air source heat pump, explains it to you, talks about the rebate, and they'd also be setting the set points and know if it is your primary heat source or not, or talking you through that process, which would then trigger they would also know about in an ideal scenario, they would know about the rate as well and can talk to you about the rate and getting on it, because you get an extra bill savings if you do meet the requirements of having it be your primary heating source. It's a lower rate, so it's beneficial to the customer.
I don't know if I want to, I'm sure Joe Smith from ABC is going to be really good, but I don't know if I really want to trust him on my rate decision. My heat pump decision, I appreciate that, and so I don't know if I want to be leaning on him to be my consultant on whether I'm going to change my rate. That's what I'm struggling with, is that relationship from putting in the heat pump makes sense. I think be forewarned that my rate is going to change because I fulfill these two particular requirements. If you have a problem, you should contact Xcel, and that's what I would hope that my contractor is telling me, and that's what I would hope that Xcel would be requiring of my contractor. And I don't know how these decision options are creating that environment, and I don't know if they are. So that's what, if we would go down the road that you're suggesting, is that's what's going to be happening, or am I going to be somewhat out in the dark and Joe Smith is going to be telling me it's a good deal?
Ms. McFarland.
Yeah, Commissioner, we've also proposed new decision option 13B, which would require education to trade allies on the rate. So our hope is through that the trade allies would be informed of this rate. It is lower, and if all things held equal, being switched to the rate, we see a bill savings for the customer. So we really see it being beneficial in a similar way that the rebate's beneficial to the customer.
Well, I guess if you tell me the training is going to be part of it, is going to be, you're not advising them on what rate they should be. You're just telling them they're going to be switched. And if you have a question, you need to then call a customer service. And here's the customer service number for Xcel that you need to call, just so you can get that information. I agree with you. I'm going to save. If I'm going to go to the heat pump, I'm going to be saving in the new rate. I want to be in that new rate. Okay, maybe there's some circumstances I have too many other things that I got going on. I got my sauna in the backyard. I got my electric, whirlpool, and I got my, all this other stuff that may not cause me to want to be on the time of use rate because I'm out there using it at the wrong time. But if it's just the heat pump in my house where I don't have any of those things, it's going to be a saving. So I'm struggling with, making sure that customer is forewarned they could be in peril.
Yeah, Commissioner, we're not actually advising that they go on the time of use rate, just if they're on the 1 period rate today, that they be put on the 1 period electric space heating rate.
So just give me one. I want to make sure that I'm packing this into my noggin here. CEE though right now is not calling for that automatic enrollment anymore, or are you? Because I kind of view this is the way that I'm seeing it. Like we've got education, we've got the rebate, and then we got the hammer, which is maybe that's the wrong word, but we've got you're going to move over automatically to the rate if you get the rebate. And you're kind of pulling back from that, right? Are you kind of moving more towards Xcel's position? Am I right, or am I?
Chair Sullivan, we are proposing that if they meet the requirements and this checkbox is checked, that they be put on the rate.
But then Xcel is basically, sorry to cut you off, but then Xcel is basically saying, oh, that'll be administratively burdensome. Put the rebate potentially, right? That's the gist of your argument.
Chair Sullivan, it's twofold. It's that we are then relying on a contractor to do this information gathering and then accurately reflecting it in the application. And then
We do that for the rebate, though, right?
we do that for the rebate, but this is then tying it to a rate, which is in our billing system. So sorry. Yes, we do that for the rebate.
Okay.
There's the other issue of our rebates are not tied to our billing. So we would have to manually then track what's happening in the rebates and make sure that accurately is reflected in our billing system. And we're concerned with customer satisfaction with that process.
Okay. Commissioner Hom.
Thank you, Chair Sullivan. So I just want to clarify this information. I think there is some confusion between time of use and space heat rates here. So we are only talking about space heating rates. The literature I got from Xcel Energy, I'm the Xcel customer, is in month of the year, which is a non-summer month, base rate will be half of non-summer rates. I think that's the literature I got from Xcel Energy. So from outside the 4 months of the year, the other 8 month, my base rate is about 10 cents per kWh or 11 cents. And Xcel Energy claimed that my rate will go down to about 6 cents. So there is no financial harm to the ratepayers, even if they are automatically changed. That's my understanding of this program. So I just want to clarify that this is we are only talking about that specific rates.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. I might come back to this,
I'm less
but
confused now, but I probably confused you
funny.
more.
I'm more confused. I felt like I was in a good spot, but it might just need to marinate, and it'll be okay. I want to now move on to, in my list, decision option 13, and I want to talk to, this is, where this comes up from is the city of Edina has filed comments that a number of their residents were given bad information by Xcel, or I should say inaccurate information by Xcel. My general sense of decision option 13 and 13A is that Xcel, that you can address the concerns here by verbally committing that you're going to fix these problems. So I just, Ms. Steinhauser, if you could just speak to decision option 13 and the city of Edina's concerns, and I'd appreciate that.
Chair Sullivan, thank you for the question. Yeah, we, as seen in their comments, once they were raised with us, we took them seriously and got them resolved, and are committed to training our folks to make sure that they understand some of the nuance changes with the new rate that went in August, and we're happy to agree to 13A and the new 13B to make sure that our folks are getting the training they need to respond to customers.
And I think this is particularly important because those are 4 people who took the additional initiative to go contact people in the city. There may be a lot more people who were given, misinformation and, didn't take advantage of it. So I think it's important that on the front end that Xcel gets it right. And then I also I know that the company has indicated it has concerns about costs in the billing system. I kind of am like, I know in the previous order you've already committed, to doing education and committed to addressing these issues. So is there really going to be, is there really that much more of an expense that we're looking at here? This is already, in my mind, the company's already going down this track.
Chair Sullivan, just for clarification, you mean costs related to the training that would be required in 13? Mm-hmm. I'm not aware of cost concerns with that.
Okay.
And just to your bigger picture concern, we did
because of these comments, look back at like feedback we've gotten from customers, and of the over 2,000 customers that were transferred because that went on this rate by calling in, we had 10 like issues or feedback that they were dissatisfied with the experience. So we did look into it. It feels like the percentage with Edina was obviously higher, and we're going to take it seriously, but it feels like it's under control.
I think I don't know if we have, I think that Ms. Beer on Edina. I'm assuming you're from Edina because you got the evil Edina green on there.
Evil.
See, this is, for anybody who's grown up in Minnesota sports, always knows that Kelly Green from Edina. So not to pick on you, but I would give her a chance to defend herself.
I didn't think Edina was still on. I'm sorry if we missed you in the introductions. If you could just introduce yourself and then feel free to.
Yeah, hi, good morning. Marissa Baer, Sustainability Manager with the City of Edina. And yeah, I appreciate the Chair and Commissioner's comments so far. And our comments, as noted, we had promoted the electric space heating rate to residents who had confirmed, installed, rebated cold climate air source heat pumps in their homes, provided them the directions from Xcel Energy's website to enroll, and received feedback from 4 of those residents that they were incorrectly told they were ineligible, and were able to work with Xcel to escalate the issue. I think our primary concern is that we were able to take advantage of relationships we have with higher level program staff to elevate that issue rather than go through that traditional customer service process that a resident or person normally would have to go through. And so I appreciate the decision option consideration to have a more robust training for folks, because those are the trusted messengers and that first point of contact the company and other folks are telling people to call to enroll and learn about this rate.
Thank you. Are there?
And my apologies, in all good jest on the green. And we do really appreciate your interjection in the docket. This is very helpful for the commission when we hear from our local governments. So.
Yeah, thank you. And we like to call it money green sometimes. But
Nice. All right. Thank you. Thank you for being here today. Do you have any additional questions on this, Commissioner Hom?
Thank you, Chair Sullivan. I'll just make some statement. I see the both side argument here that, typically these days we are calling the service call. You have to be ready to be on standby for 15 minutes. So whenever I call my wireless or the internet service provider, that's the typical. But my limited anecdotal experience with calling Xcel for my own wasn't that bad. So I don't know whether we can keep doing it if we stay with that. I'm not taking a side one way or another. Meantime, also, I'm also a savvy user, and I have 2 Xcel apps, one for my account, the other one for my real-time usage monitoring app. It is not that intuitive. So there is a pro and con on both ways, and we need to be a little more careful. Unless it's automatic enrollment, I don't know whether it's going to help customer one way or another, because everything is confusing. So I think a typical Xcel ratepayers, unless you are really paying attention, I'm really paying attention to Xcel Energy because my job, but still I am having issue. But if we are trying to do something for who's not paying attention every day, I think it can be a trouble one way or another. But we need to find easier way for people to enroll into this one, because I don't think it's going to hurt any customer, because it's going to bring down their rates. Not only for the heating portion, I think that email state that, and then I have to see my second bill to the full impact. Every electricity kWh I use in addition to heating will have the same rates, because probably Xcel cannot distinguish between how I use for the space heating and the other usage. So I think it will help all those participants, and then it can incentivize people to pay attention to the heat pump. So that's why I think find the best way to automatically enroll these people is a good thing, because I don't think there is any negative to those customers. But I don't have a good answer, but I just want to share my experience.
No, I appreciate that. And I mean, it kind of, one of the things after we were talking about that, Ms. Steinhauser, was, doesn't, in decision option 12, it requires the company to come back and check in with, you know, how's this working out for you? It feels like it's self-correcting.
Chair Sullivan, decision option 12 requires us to implement a confirmation of enrollment.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm speaking to the new CEE 12, the revised decision option 12.
Chair Sullivan, can you repeat your question?
The question is that it feels to me like the concern that you raised is addressed by the new decision option 12, requiring, it says, with confirmation of enrollment, customers should be informed of the benefit of the rate, and the process of unenrolling if they do not wish to remain on the rate.
Chair Sullivan, it protects the customer's knowledge. Our issue is really with tying the rebate form and a non-Xcel employee talking to a customer about primary heating and making that determination, and then having us base a rate change for the customer on that, both from a gathering information. So,
but to like Commissioner Ham's point, like, I understand that. I understand that, and I would be more inclined to think, I mean, I'm struggling with this because there is a certain amount of, you're taking agency away from somebody. I get that. It's that removal of agency is something that I thought about too. But at the end of the day, like, there's no harm. Like, you are just literally moving them into a rate that will benefit them.
Chair Sullivan.
So if I were just an average person on the street, I'd be like, why are you guys spending 10 minutes talking about this? It's going to save me money.
100% agree that it will benefit customers. It's how to get customers on the rate. They have to have space heating as their primary heat source. Am I getting that right? So it's not just having a heat pump.
The additional complexity.
There is that piece of it. We do rely on our contractors to fill out a rebate form for the thing that is their job, right? Which is installing qualified heat pumps. Asking them to then have the conversation with the customer or assess for the customer, or and then tag that. What if they don't? What happens then? Or what if they do and the customer doesn't actually qualify? Those are the concerns we're having with tying it.
And then you get the phone call and you get the angry customer. That's the concern.
We also get that. So we are, and I think it's worth repeating, like, we are committed to working with CEE to find a way to make this easier. We just don't think this particular iteration is the answer.
But if you do the training, most heat guys are coming in. They're in the electrical cabinet. They're going to see that there's all these, space heaters that are hooked up there. I mean, they're going to have some knowledge. I can't imagine in Minnesota. I'd probably be more worried about it in maybe Missouri or Arkansas. But in Minnesota, we have our primary, usually forced air systems, and that it would be extremely unusual, I would think, that you would have somebody who is putting in a heat pump that's not their primary source. I just put a little convection heater in my shed for work, and so that's off in the distance, the background that I know a contractor would never see, but it's not my primary heat source. It's just a little backup to space heat a little area. It's always going to be my heat pump. How many of these people are out there that are still running baseboard heat that most contractors would not see that? I think they would see that and say, oh, wait a minute, you may not be primary here. Frankly, I would probably, if I were a smart contractor, tell them to unplug the thing because you're losing money by having that stupid space heater down in your basement or whatever. If it's more than 50%, let's put a duct in for you. That's what I would suggest. But I can't imagine that even happening.
Chair Sullivan, Commissioner Tuma, we audited some of, I might not get all these details right, but we had in Colorado our contractors input data, and it wasn't necessarily for automatic enrollment, but we audited it, and a quarter of it was wrong. So there's just some concern about like putting this on a non-Excel employee on a document that customers don't see. That's our concern. We agree that it's beneficial to the customers. We agree that we want to get as many customers on it as we can. We've gotten over 2,000 customers on it with our current marketing program in the last 4 months. And we're going to continue to work on it, including a self-enrollment option.
I'm sorry, I'm not, like, it just seems so simple to me, and I'm not, I know, Ms. Steinhauser, you're here, but like, the customer installs air source heat pump, gets rebate. Xcel likes that. Lots more electricity sold to them. The contractor attests, yes, 50% threshold is met. Rebate is granted. Xcel calls back and says, yeah, and asks the person, are you good with this? All is good. Like, it seems like it's like a nice tight little circle that's convenient for people. And at the end of the day, if something was messed up, there was no harm, no foul.
That's the key. There's really no harm, no foul. I mean, the worry you have is that somehow you're going to do an audit and kick somebody off the lower rate, and they're going to be mad. And I just can't see that happening that often in Minnesota. Is where I'm kind of coming from. I just don't. Colorado's going to be different. They don't have basements. A lot of them do space heating with baseboard. It's very rare that we have that anymore, particularly in the metropolitan area, that if you built your house anywhere in the last 40 years, you're going to have forced air heating. So, I mean, I'm not seeing it happening. And if that does, and it just drags out forever, that somebody is getting a lower rate because they put a heat pump in and they're not 50% of their heating, and just like 54% or whatever, I'm not going to be bent out of shape about it as a class customer who would have gotten that rate. It's going to be so de minimis that again, it's people on the street are looking at us going, why are we talking about this? Mm-hmm. We're getting too far in the weeds.
Chair Sullivan, if I may.
Yeah.
One of the things that my team is emphasizing for me is we've committed to reaching out to the folks who have received a rebate and are not on the rate. And we did that already this year or last year. So they've submitted a rebate. We've checked they're not on the rate. We contact them about getting on the rate. That seems like we're committed to doing that every year. The rate only applies starting in October. We can commit to doing that before the heating season starts. And then there's direct contact with the customer about the rate without having to rely on this intermediary application piece.
You know what this reminds me of? And you're going to say that's unfair. But what this reminds me of is the gas affordability program, when we went and we did automatic enrollment for gas affordability once you get into LIHEAP. And we heard hemming and hawing, no, you can't do that, can't do that. And now we've done it, and geez, works really, really well. I mean, and I understand it's different, but it just kind of, that's the way this feels to me, is like we kind of created, there's an elegant solution here, and I hear what you're saying. I'm not trying to minimize it. I'm really not, but I just like, this seems to work. Commissioner Hom?
Thank you, Chair Sullivan. As I said, I don't have a good answer because there is a pros and cons, and I think in my view, it's like a demand response. We have to make sure that customer doesn't have to interact. It has to be more passive way to do it. So that's the only thing I can say, but also my personal experience, I got an email, I got a rebate, so I got an email this year. So I called Xcel. I was able to get into it. It took me about 5-minute wait and then 5-minute conversation, and they're very knowledgeable. They were helping me. I was able to do
great. Yeah, they're great. Yeah.
So compared to the other two, the utility service I mentioned, that internet and wireless, their service was a lot better. Mm-hmm. But still, I think some people may not be able to wait 5 because automatic message I'm getting is that you are going to wait for 15 plus minutes. But somehow I was able to connect within 5 minutes, and then I was able to stay on. So I was ready to stay on, so I usually put it on speakerphone and do other things. But are we expecting everybody should do it to get into this one? I don't think so, because it's not going to harm them. Plus, I think it's going to really give incentive people to think about heat pump. And actually, I was successfully persuaded one of our staff to move in before year end because I was giving this information. So this is a very good information to have and a potential incentive in addition to rebate. Now rebate is gone, but I think hopefully this can help in the long run to promote the heat pump if electrification is the direction we are going. But yeah, I don't have a good answer.
Ms. McFarland, looks like you have been thinking and noodling on something. Do you have a thought?
Yeah, I think so. The alternative, if the contractor doesn't know if they meet the requirements, is that the customer knows and calls in. So I think even on the rebate application, if the contractor doesn't check it or is unsure, there's still the backup option of the customer being aware, being notified of it through outreach, and then calling in. So I think I see like a pathway still, even if it doesn't work for some reason.
Ms. Steinhauser, do you want to say, I don't want to, if you've got something you want to say?
Thanks, Chair Sullivan. Thanks, Chair Sullivan. I think I agree with Ms. McFarland that I think that customers won't get lost, especially because of that annual outreach. I actually think that is sufficient here. Also because of confusion of when this rate starts and doesn't apply, right? So if someone, I don't know, gets a heat pump in June and they're like, great, I'm on a new rate, and then they don't see any change, that creates a lot of confusion. So, but I understand where the commission's coming from. We agree.
They got a new air conditioner, though. They're happy as can be. And then the winter comes around, and that air conditioner works as a heater.
It's true. But their rate won't change for this space heating rate. It won't change in June, right? If they're looking for immediate changes, it's not going to change. It won't change till October. All that said, we're in agreement. We want customers on this rate. We want to make it easy for them. Again, we don't agree that this is the best way, but we'll look to the commission for guidance.
Commissioner Hom.
Thank you, Chair Sullivan. Okay, once again, I'll share my experience. I think unless Xcel certified the contractor cannot do this work for the automatic rebates, right? So I had to go to the Xcel website and I have to find the contractor certified on the Xcel.
I believe that's correct.
Okay. So in that process, can you train and make a requirement this contractor to provide this rate information in separate page? Because depends on contractors, I don't know, but at least my contractor, they are relatively bigger guys. So they had a checklist. This installer is not savvy with the regulation, but they come with this checkbox in the iPad. They had to check one by one. So in that checkbox, if they are required to provide separate paper sheet to inform these ratepayers about this opportunity to lower their rates and they are qualified, isn't it doable?
Ms. Steinhauser.
Chair Sullivan, Commissioner Hom, we absolutely train our contractors and specifically related to the heat pump, so I know that we could provide that. I don't know, honestly, the feasibility sitting here of making it a requirement, but we could report on that. We can get back to you and provide that information.
Yeah, and if any customer receiving that sheet, I mean, based on the way I read that email, I think nobody will say no.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I'm going to stick with Ms. Steinhauser. I'll change the subject, which I'm sure you're super happy that we're about. But decision option 10, requiring Xcel to draft tariff language to allow enrollment in electric space heating rate. I am just flagging for you in doing if we do this decision option, to make sure that to be aware of in the rate book 2.3, to make sure that this is consistent with that. In particular, you can the second sentence or the after the comma in 2.3. that the company will assist the customer in selection of the rate schedule or schedules that in its judgment will result in the lowest. Just making sure that it's consistent with that. I wanted to flag for you that our staff and attorneys flagged that for me. So, okay, I'm now going to move into my next set of questions, unless somebody, are we good? For decision option 18, I want to, hold on a second, let me formulate. So, actually, I'm going to, decision option 20 is what I want to look at. Requiring Xcel to report on the actual hourly load of net renewables. I see that Xcel, that you're not in favor of this decision option. I just want to get your thoughts on this.
Chair Sullivan, we are willing to include that.
You're willing? Okay, good. Yeah. Then that addresses my issue on that. I thought that the information from that would be particularly useful as we're making sure that the residential rate lines up with the time of need. So I thought that was. And then decision option 21, requiring Xcel to report on the number of customers in the TOU. I understand that you have concerns about that. If you could just speak to that.
Chair Sullivan, our concern was that we didn't have the information. I think we can agree to this, and we'll just be really clear about the information we have and any limitations we have around that.
Okay. The reason that I was kind of wondering about that is because I thought that would be the kind of information that you would, I mean, you can speak to it, Mr. Mosberg, but like would be in the IDP, like that would, these are almost, Mr. Morgan.
Chair Sullivan, thank you. I believe that, so decision option 21, it's the number of TOU net metering customers on the A60 and the number of those customers who have BESS, battery energy storage systems installed. And I believe that is that information is collected during the interconnection process, and the company should have it. So the reason we supported that option in our comments is that that is useful information for the number of net metering customers and like the subgroup of net metering customers most likely to make use of this rate.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Hom.
Thank you, Chair Sullivan. So yeah, it's not in this, and I think I was thinking after I learned that Xcel Colorado has a time of use opt-out, we are opt-in. So I think this is a more great opportunity nationwide. We can see what's the value of opt-in versus opt-out on the time of use, because same company with a similar size of customer base with a two different approach. To learn the value of this time of use in Minnesota case, we have some restriction because we are opt-in. But if you can compare with the Xcel Colorado opt-out system program with it, I think many academics can find a great information and advise us what to do in the future. And then everybody can learn in the nation about the overall situation. So hopefully, I don't know, we don't need to put that in this, but I think that's another thing we can have a good learning, because Xcel Energy has two different service area with the same program with the different options.
Play them off. All right, I'm ready to make a motion unless somebody else wants to discuss anything. Okay. Well, my motion will be, I'm going to move decision option 1, 3, 4, which includes Mencia's, the A60. So basically 4 includes 5, but I'm just going to move decision option 4. I'm moving decision option 6, decision option 7, new CEE decision option 8, decision option 9, decision option 10, decision option 11, and then I'm going to move A and C. I will move new CEE revised 12, decision option 14, and then decision option 15, decision options 16, 17, and 18, and decision options 20 and 21. And I'm happy to answer any questions. Or we can just move to a vote. All right. All in favor? Please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion passes. Thank you, everybody. I hope everybody has a nice weekend, and we'll talk to you next week.
Thanks for using